Well, hey there, and welcome back to episode 162. It's the first week of May, and you know what that means. I've got my co host Paul here with me to join me for another episode of the Ask Us Anything segment. How's it going today, Paul?
Going pretty good. You'll have to pardon my setup. I'm remodeling, so it's a little bit deconstructed. Hopefully, I'll get it up and going for you. So I apologize for the poor lighting, especially.
Well, I think we'll still have a really good conversation no matter what your background's looking like right now. So, when's your last day of school?
The 28th of May. So we got a
28th?
yep. We have one of those lucky districts that we start early and stay late. It's just we were the lucky chosen
Luck
few.
of the draw.
Yeah.
We get out the 17th, I think. So,
Oh man, I'm jealous.
well, as we navigate the close of a school year, whether you're getting out in a few weeks or you still got another full month, these transitions that happen at the end of the school year, they're going to come whether we want them to or not, or whether we're really ready for them to. So today we've got two great questions lined up that I think many of you will find incredibly relevant. So let's just dive right in. I've got the first one is from Megan, and she asks, what are some fun end of year educational activities? My principal said that we still have to do educational things, even though it's the end of the year, and my classes are, or my kids are just off the wall. So I feel like I talked about this last week on episode 161 about keeping the kids engaged. And I think that was some of the things that I said on that episode were pretty relevant. So make sure you check out 161. But just keeping your students engaged, just modifying things that are going to, um, be at their level, be at their interest level, catering to their different learning styles, incorporating movement and just fun things. I think that's important. But when I was in the classroom, at the end of the year after we were done with state testing, I wasn't done teaching, but I was done with the, um, I guess, having to follow a curriculum or having to follow the standards. And so I always pulled in project based learning, and my kids loved it. And we did. There's a guy on TPT named, or I assume it's a guy. I don't know, but it was Digital Conquer and Divide, and he has a whole bunch of project based learning activities. And my fourth graders, I taught math. So my fourth graders would do the zoo one where it had the perimeter and the area. And then my fifth graders would do the geometry geometricity. I don't know how to say it, but it was the 3D shapes and where they were building the whole city with 3D shapes. And so they were engaged and they loved it. And I could even pull in the students who were lower and they weren't ready for those skills. I mean, they were involved as well with the coloring and the cutting and some of those skills that they needed. And so I looked at his store today and he's got some new ones. He's got Trapped in the 80s. And
Ooh.
I feel like I definitely need to check that out. I grew up in the 80s, so I want to see how authentic it is. And then he had one called Plan a Taco Truck. And I feel like that's right up my alley. So those are some new ones. But yeah, I feel like just keeping them engaged and having fun. I think that's probably the most important thing.
Yeah, I agree, especially on the engaged part. And I think that if they're not engaged, um, that's when they start doing things they're not supposed to be doing,
Yeah.
which then you're just like telling them over and over again to not do something because they keep on doing something that's against the rules.
Mhm.
So I've been what I typically do is I think of it as like, okay, there's the testing's over. We've got just a few months left, and it's a great time to review.
Yeah.
Review what we've learned, solidify, give them that second touch on those topics that they maybe struggle with. And in order to do that, you need to have good data collection throughout the year because you need to know, like, okay, because you have limited time. So what would be a good area to review?
Mhm.
And then what I do, which this is rather technical. I don't know as if I could just like say do this because it's very elaborate. and I'm extra, and I do way more than I should
Yeah.
do.
I've learned that
Um,
about you.
yeah, but I create customized escape rooms meant for review. So I will find a topic, and you can almost apply any content piece. You can apply a puzzle that's based on that content piece. There's a ton of word puzzles. You know, for example, you could do it's called a secret word crossword puzzle, where they have to find the secret word, the password for getting into the next thing.
Mm, yeah.
But then it's also a vocab review because they have to fill out the crossword puzzle. But it's not just a crossword puzzle for the sake of being a crossword puzzle. This is like, we have to find the password. Now we're like hackers trying to get into this secret, enemy organization, and it's so much more fun. So that is a great thing to do. I not only do it for my students, but I also do it for my nephews and niece when they're like, I just am like, here, I just created this for my students, passing it on to and they love it. And it's like, it's so funny because I trick them, it's because they're just like, they wouldn't do the same if I just put the problems on a piece of paper. They would
Right.
whine and complain about it. But if it's the password to get into the secret, the computer, well, then, whew, then they work hard, they push through the frustration, and they love it. So I do a lot of escape rooms, review rooms like that. Um, and the other thing with the project based learning, so I kind of took this based off. I'm going to give credit where credit's due. For Genius Hour, I kind of
Mm,
adapted from that, which is basically the idea that you give the kids an hour, but it's supposed to be throughout the year. I adapted it to be a program that would just be temporary. So one of the best ways to keep kids engaged is to let them have permission to learn about something they want to learn about, giving them the opportunity to learn about that. And it shouldn't be the full time. You should still have content. You should still teach those reviews and whatnot that you need, but giving them that time to be like, hey, we have a couple months left. uh, you're going to basically create a pitch for why you should learn about whatever it is you want to learn about. It could be anything, within reason, obviously. Learning how to pick a lock might be questionable, but learning how to, like, more about the car industry, or learning about how programming works for games, or even like video games, how they have like the people that are paid to play video games, like, find out more details. I mean, it's a dream that all the kids have, like, ooh, make money
yeah.
playing video games, but tell me something real about it. Like, what is the struggles and what is the competition ratio? Like, is everyone that goes for it, do they get it, or is it like the NFL or NBA, where it's like a very small margin actually can make money off of it, and how did they get there? And that kind of thing is, I believe, one of the best forms of education is when it's intrinsic. It's them curious. When you can get them curious about something, that is the most engaged they will ever be.
Yeah. I feel like both of the things that we talked about are were directed more towards older students, the older elementary and middle school age. But you can do these things with your little ones as well. Let them tell you what they're interested in. Kind of give them an interest survey. Are we interested in animals? Are we interested in growing things, hands-on things? And then I feel like getting your kids outside, no matter what age level, I think that is so important when the weather starts getting nice, to get outside, and even if you were going to do a worksheet or something, take it outside and put it in a different environment, and that just kind of puts a little bit of different spin on it for kids, and they seem to not realize what they're doing as much.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, that going outside, I do a nature scavenger hunt. I normally do it at the beginning of the year, where we're going over expectations and it's real rigorous.
Mhm.
But it'd be something that'd be good at the end of the year too. Have a purposeful time outside,
Yeah.
especially when the weather's nice after being cooped up all winter.
Yeah.
I think that that would be very valuable.
And another thing I think I didn't do as a teacher because I didn't like it, but it was arts and crafts. Kids, I think this time of the year, doing those Mother's Day activities and even sending home some Father's Day activities, getting your kids involved in arts. And I don't know, I feel like when I was a little kid, we did a lot of art in the classroom throughout the year, and I feel like now it's not as not that it's not as important, but it's not pushed as much. And we're always like reading and math, reading and math. And so I feel like this is a great time to start bringing in some of those art projects. Now, I don't like it because I don't like the mess, but if you can find one of your paraprofessionals or a co-teacher who wants to lead that, or if that is your jam, then this is definitely a good time to bring in some of those arts and crafts projects.
And I'm gonna ramp it up into just STEAM projects.
Yeah.
There's a lot of art and engineering things that you can do. I know for one, I believe it was the day after we had some big distracting thing like a test or something, and the day after, and I think my TA was out, it was just me. I'm like, ugh, I gotta gotta figure out what to do for today. So I just brought out a bunch of random things, and I held a catapult building contest where they had to fling something the furthest distance, and they'd get
Oh,
a
awesome.
prize. And I was like, most of them ended in disaster, but they were still okay with it. Like they were like, well, it didn't work as well, but it did go a distance, and it meant that they learned about, okay, so many physics
Mhm.
things, like like how does a lever work, at a
Yeah.
certain point, like you have to have that stopping bar to be able to actually throw something and not just put it into the ground. There's so many things that they had to think about and learn, because we tested it throughout the process, and that's what we did the entire day. And they still ask me, can we do another catapult project? And because we've
That's
learned so
great.
much, we want to start again. We want to try a different approach. And it was actually funny because I also made one to like up the competition, and on the first shot it broke. It like just shattered, and so I got last place, and they all loved it. That I got mine was like, mine looked like a catapult, mine had like multiple features that weren't necessary. I even color coordinated it, and the first thing, the string broke. It totally ruined my entire strategy, and my thing, I lost. I got last place, but that actually made the people that got last place for
So
the minimal distance they went, um, they
you say,
were
"I meant to
very
do
happy.
that."
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Well, I think those are some good ideas. Just overall, what we're telling you is just to keep them engaged so that they're not causing issues for you and for, you know, the school at the end of the year. Kids need to they're having spring fever too. They're ready, they're done. So just keeping them engaged, keeping them on track, and I think you'll be fine. The second question is from Heather, and she says, I've had a student for 5 years, and this is my first experience with transitioning a student to middle school. How can I prepare the student for this transition as well as myself and the parents? And Heather, I know exactly how you're feeling. This is very hard when when you're in a position where you are teaching those kids from kindergarten through, fifth or sixth grade. It's it's very hard to let them go. It's hard to see them move on as you're almost losing a child, somebody that you've cared deeply for the last 5 years, and you've made a really strong connection with them, and you've made really good relationships with the parents. It is difficult, but you have to realize that this is what you want for them. This is what you've been preparing them for. You want them to move on and grow and succeed. So I think the first thing you need to do is just make sure that the student and the family know where they're going and who they're going to, make those connections with the other school, and start building that relationship so that the parents feel more comfortable with the changes that are coming.
Yeah, yeah. I think it's similar to when like a parent drops their student off at school for the first
Yeah.
time. It's like I can't like I've spent all this time with you helping you through things and then now I can't
Yeah.
come with you. They won't let me, you know, and that's
Mhm.
a hard place to be for sure. With some students. Other students is like,
See,
bye. I mean, you know,
but I think she's coming
pardon.
from the ones where she has a
Yeah,
really
I
strong.
think that yeah, based on the question, it's definitely students that she is going to very much genuinely miss.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that that is. I mean, it's first of all, let's just take a step back and say, oh, that's a challenge. Give yourself some grace to deal with that because
Mhm.
that's not easy. You know, it's I go through it every year. You know, it's just
Mhm.
like I only teach fifth and sixth grade, and then they move on. But
Yeah.
it's still like that's 2 years that I've interacted with them, and you know I don't even need a full year to build a relationship with kids.
Mhm.
I don't need much time at all before I'm their biggest champion, you know, and trying to help them. And so like first of all, Heather, just make sure that you give yourself some space to deal with that and process that because
Yeah.
oh man, that's just hard.
Yeah. I think we always gave our kids a gift at the end of the year, so we made them a like a kind of a graduation stole, but it was around, it's like a necklace, and we made it out of candy, and it had their name on it, and um, we gave them a gift, and it wasn't much, but then we would also take a picture with them and then print that picture off and give it to the family so that they had something of us to take with them. And I always made sure and gave or made sure that the parents had my contact information and let them know that it's okay. I'm not going to be their teacher, but you can still reach out to me and you
Yeah.
can ask questions. And I even had a parent who I wasn't her son's teacher for the last 2 years. She reached out to me a couple weeks ago and was asking about something at the middle school that was going on. And so I felt it made me feel really good that she still saw me as her child's teacher and somebody that she could trust and go to when she had a question.
Yeah, I definitely have some relationships with like that where it's like, yeah, I can't like be your teacher anymore or be your child's teacher anymore.
Mhm.
Uh, but I'm going to advocate for them still. Like I will make sure you have the info that you need to help give them the best experience. And that's, you know, there's certain kids that are just like that. And it's the same kids that you get invited to their eighth grade graduation and
Mhm.
graduation like you I got to experience that for the first time last year. The kids I had my first year at this current school invited me to their graduation and I went and I saw like it was just so great to see that they had not only survived, but they had thrived. And I think that
Mhm.
Heather, that's something to consider as well. Like you're going to be on the other end of this where you're like, wow, I'm so proud of them for what
Yeah.
they've done, you know, and I think that that is very valuable. On another note, how like to actually address your question, the IEP doesn't transfer as much information as you think it does.
Mhm.
When you know you've dealt with it, you know what's in it, you know what everything means. Like there is some things that are yes spelled out, but there are some subtle things that are not addressed and
Yeah.
or translated effectively in an IEP, for a lot of different reasons. You know, unfortunately, there are some teachers who uh, don't take as much time on making sure they understand the IEP. Or maybe it's a case like, especially lately, they are their caseload is full and they're overwhelmed and they just they haven't been able to put as much focus on every detail. And also know that they probably only will look at the previous IEP. I mean, maybe if they'll look back, but they're really only going to look at the last one. So they're going to miss a lot of that history because one, like we don't have time to go through every IEP for the entire uh, time they've been in school, especially as they get
Mhm.
higher up, But also, um, it's just it's just something that there's a lot that can be missed, especially when a student moves around some, or there's so much that can be missed. And I've as a teacher who's receiving students, I always am making the effort. I'm not always perfect. Sometimes it's a hard time to add another thing to my plate, but I always try to take the IEP and read it fully through as soon as I get it. We have to hold a move-in meeting, but if I just read it and I just sit down and I have to like physically take the time and be like, I'm going to sit down with this and I'm not going to stop until it's done, just so that
Mhm.
I have a picture. But that's not always the case, for a variety of reasons. So I say all that. I'm not going to give you a problem without giving you a possible solution. A lot can be transitioned in what I call snapshots of the student. Um, Districts often carry on similar interventions into higher grade levels. So, one, figure that out. And then two, make sure that their teacher has a snapshot that says they were at this level doing this thing when they left at the end of the school year. And that could be for like a math interventionist. Like they had this many facts fluent and they only really struggled on sevens and eights, multiplying by sevens and eights. Well, that gives them something real and tangible
Mhm.
to put into the system because first beginning of the year, there's going to be some regression and there's going to be some lack of motivation probably from some students. So the first data collection tool isn't going to be effective. And something that I've found is like when I get students sometimes, their paperwork, their IEP goal, which was set at the beginning of a year, they're like, I assessed them once and they're like way higher.
Yeah.
And so when you have an IEP that's right at the beginning of the year, you don't know the full scope of the student. And I know that from my perspective, I also will get students and they'll jump grade levels. So if you look at their goals that I set at the beginning, they've met them, but then they've also gone much further. And you've got to specify that in a very easy to consume way. So these snapshots just say like we used reflex math. They left at this score. They use it was now they have it synced, which is nice. So like through Clever, they have it synced, so it should stay with them as they go, which is great and provide data collection. But that's not always the case. So it's a good idea just give them a snapshot, print off the progress monitoring from each individual intervention, and that gives a much clearer picture than the IEP sometimes can.
Yeah. Yeah. I feel like once once you give all of that information to the teacher, you know, you have to intentionally connect that parent with that teacher. So you're giving that information to them. They need to meet them. You need to take that student to that school, especially if it's a high needs child
Right.
or parent set of parents. So they're really really concerned and they're very anxious about what the next year is going to bring. Take the kid to the building, take their data there, and show them this is what the kid can do, this is what they can do functionally, this is what
Yeah.
they can do academically, and just make sure that you're trying to have that seamless connection with the new school so that parents feel a lot more comfortable. Whenever they were leaving preschool and they were coming to me, I remember having parents who weren't too sure about what my program was going to look like. And
Right.
so I remind the parents of that, you remember I got them as preschoolers, as babies, and they've grown so much. They're going to be just fine. They're going to do just fine. It's going to be a little bit of a hiccup for everyone, usually more for the parents than it really is
Yeah.
for the students,
Yeah.
but they're going to be fine. And this is what we want for them. We want them to continue to grow and to progress and to someday, hopefully live independently or live in a
Yeah.
group home or, um, have a job, go to college, whatever it
Yeah.
is. We want this for them, and you have to communicate that to the parents. And I know it's hard. And like Paul said, you've got to give yourself that space to be able to kind of grieve that loss a little bit, but you've got to be excited for their future as well.
Yeah, definitely. I
Well,
think
I
that
feel like, go ahead.
I think that in conclusion, just do your best to communicate as clearly, and I'd even say, like, make it clear to the next year's teacher, whoever it is, like wherever you put it. Just give them permission to contact you if they have questions.
Yeah.
So I think that there's that unwritten rule is like, oh, they don't want to be bothered by me.
Hmm.
But actually, it's kind of a joy when you get contacted by a teacher and they said, help me, understand this, how you did this and how you worked with this, because then
Hmm.
it's this like, oh yes, okay. And I think that that has been one of the things that I have definitely done, and it helps to just say it, to just have it verbally or written, expressed. Please contact me with questions. I
Yeah.
want to help you understand what we went through, especially if you've had them for 5 years. You are, an expert in this kid for
Hmm.
working with them so often. So give the next step up the permission to do that, and they'll probably appreciate it,
Yeah. Yeah.
because it's valuable advice from an educator. So like that, sometimes there's a disconnect between parents and educators because they don't understand. But as an educator, you have a unique way to help and support even after that with just one or two phone calls.
Hmm. Yeah. It's not a competition. You're not saying, oh, you're not asking for help because you can't do it. You're asking for help, like you said, because the expert before you had a had 5 years or six
Right.
years with this kid, and they know the kid in and out. And so just asking for help at the beginning of school isn't a bad thing either. Very good tip. Well, these were some great questions for this busy time of the year, and if it also gave us a moment to celebrate the growth that our kids are having and the achievements that our students have. And when we're preparing for those transitions, just know that the preparation and the dedication that you have can lay the groundwork for successful new beginnings. So keep sending your questions our way. You can go to Sped Prep. I don't know. Do I have a link?
You had one last time. We figured it out.
You're going to have to edit this out.
That's right.
I will make sure if you have questions for us, keep sending them our way. We'll put the link in the show notes so that you can ask ask your questions. Well, thanks for a great conversation, Paul. I will see you next month.
All right. And I'll be off for summer break. I can't wait.